Warm greetings. Today from the Insight Meditation Center here in Redwood City. And I have the good fortune of being able to go between these two wonderful meditation centers. And this is the kind of the home center. I'm happy to be back and happy to be with you here. And so people associate Buddhism with truth often, what's called the Four Noble Truths, and sometimes put those at the center of Buddhist teachings. And that's fine, but in terms of practice, what is repeated over and over again in the teachings of the Buddha, much more often than any reference to truth, which is knowing and seeing. And perhaps knowing and seeing are meant to be an alternative way of talking about knowing and seeing truth. Because we want to be able to see and know what's happening in our direct experience. And one of the things to distinguish is between what's directly known, directly seen, that we can really verify through our direct experience, and what is our interpretation? What is the value we put on something? What's the meaning we assign to it? And what meaning do we assign it to ourselves, or what do we make up about ourselves in relationship to experience? And the interpretation, the meaning, the purpose, the value, they certainly have a place in this world and practice, and it's important. But we want to really see the difference between the direct experience and the added layers we put on. And then when we sit down to do meditation, mindfulness meditation, we want to emphasize the directness, what we can know directly. And it's possible to know directly that we are adding meaning, we are adding layers of interpretation, we are adding values, judgments, commentary, projections into the future, associations of what we have in the past. And there's layers and complexity of all the stuff that we add that's extra. And even if it has some value and important to do so, it's still not the same thing as direct experience. So when we sit, we want to kind of become sensitive to this so that we can prioritize direct experience when we're meditating. After meditation, there might be time for a deep contemplation, deep reflection about meaning and purpose and contextualizing what happened. But for meditation, we want to try to keep it really simple, as if what we can know and see directly, that's the door forward in the Dharma. That's where we can begin freeing ourselves from the layers of reactivity, free ourselves from the layer of cloudiness, filters through which we see. It's the way in which we could see more clearly what's happening, and in doing so become wiser. So in this meditation, you might, do the basic meditation, mindfulness of breathing, being here in the present moment, but keep an eye out from the difference between the simplicity of the direct experience and what we add to it. Meaning, interpretation, even something as simple as, are we at the end yet? Or, boy, this is taking a long time. Or Gil is talking a lot. All that is commentary, and it's nothing wrong, but necessarily. But there's the commentary. This is not the direct experience. The immediacy of it is just like Gil talking, just a voice talking. and sound happening. The breathing, as you breathe, and if your mind wanders off a lot, the idea that I'm a poor meditator, that's an interpretation. That's a made-up layer on top of it. It might have, and the immediacy, what we can see directly, this is so simple. And sometimes, and this is the relief that can come from it, is so simple that we're freed from the weight of these interpretations. So if the mind wanders off a lot in thought, then we see, oh, the mind is wandering off. It's that simple. And even the idea that it's doing it a lot means that it's higher level of interpretation based on history, based on what we remember, the repetition of it all. At the moment, what we can see and know, the mind is involved in thinking. Let's bring it back. That simple can be a relief. So to become sensitive to how you leave direct experience, and then return to what can be known and seen, known and perceived directly here and now. So assuming a meditation posture, and the beginning of knowing and seeing directly in our own experience is to do so in our physical posture. Maybe moving a little bit, twisting, rocking a little bit, to really feel and sense ourselves into an aligned, balanced, good posture. Slowly closing the eyes. And as already now, just sitting here like this, are you telling yourself stories, interpretation about what's happening, how it is for you, and how you are? And are you judging, or you're evaluating, or you interpreting? Even if it's accurate, it is not the same thing as direct experience. If we're seeing through the lens of those interpretations. If we see interpretation as interpretation, then we're back to the world of direct knowing. And then gently taking some long, slow, deep breaths. Relaxing on the exhale. Letting the breathing return to normal. And continue to relax on the exhale. Anywhere in the body where you feel holding. and centering yourself on your breathing. The direct experience of an inhale, knowing how it's felt and known through the body. Knowing and seeing, knowing, perceiving the exhale as it's known in the body. And other thoughts or feelings that interpret, react, assign meaning, or assign a future. And if so, recognize it as such. And come back taking refuge in the direct experience. when you are more involved in thinking than with breathing, chances are as you're involved in the story-making mind, the interpretive mind, the planning mind, you're involved, you've lost the touch with the breathing, the direct experience, perception. And then with whatever energy or capacity you have to think, direct it instead to knowing and perceiving breathing. If you're telling stories or interpretations or thinking about something, perhaps it's something deep inside that needs to be reassured. It's okay for now. And then to find a refuge, a place of safety for a few minutes in the simplicity of direct experience, here, breathing in your body. Just knowing what is actually happening here without story, interpretation. And then as we come to the end of the meditation, how simply can you now open your heart to the wider world? Open your thoughts to simply know or sense or have a general idea of the people of your life, people you know, the people you don't know, people you'll learn about today or meet. And to perhaps aspire to the best of your ability to know them directly without the lens of our interpretations and stories and judgments, values, meaning, futures and pasts. Just to be with a person in their basic, simple way, humanity of the moment. And to have goodwill. To wish them well. The kind of wellness, simple, safety, stability, contentment, where being happy, being well, brings out the best in people. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. And may it be that the way that we are, together with others, makes it more likely for them to feel some happiness and safety, some peace, some freedom. May we be a refuge for others. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and here we have the third talk on the Dharma of challenges. And maybe in some ways life is one continuous challenge with little interludes between them. And so learning to be with challenges, learning to be wise about them and find our way through them in an effective way is a very important part of Dharma practice. So Dharma has different meanings, and today's meaning, that the third meaning that I've listed before, is Dharma as truth. And what we mean by truth is very important to consider. And one of the simplest ones that I like a lot is mindfulness is a practice of truth-telling. That the truth means that we're honest. And that honesty is basically truth out loud, or truth that we discover is to be honest with ourselves. And whether we should be verbally honest and truthful about everything we experience is questionable, since sometimes truth can hurt people. But we always want to be truthful towards ourselves. We're really honest, learn how to be honest. And we are honest with ourselves. And so how do we learn to do that? How do we learn to stop and take a moment or take time to really recognize how we are and what's happening for us, the truth of how we feel? And one of the really important things to learn in this quest for truth and to honesty is to be able to distinguish between our direct experience and the interpretations we add to it, the layers of meaning-making, judgments, commentary, value that we add on top of things, the time that we add on top of things. For example, if this continues, this will end up in some terrible way. This means that, terrible things will happen. Or past, this is just like what happened before. And therefore I know what this is about. So some of that layers of meaning-making and thoughts and interpretations that we have are appropriate and wise to do. But it's also a place where we get into tremendous trouble. And when we have challenges in our life, the chances are fairly high that the interpretive, story-making mind, predictive mind, value mind, judgment mind, is operating more strongly than usual. It kind of makes sense. We have a challenge, we're difficult, and so what does this mean for me? How do I find my way out? And what's wrong here? I have to understand what's happening. So it makes sense that we get into that mode. But the interpretive, meaning-making, story-making mode is a fair amount of time is inaccurate. It doesn't have the full picture. It generalizes. It settles on a particular interpretation, on a particular aspect of what's happening. Sometimes it has blinders on. It doesn't see the fuller picture. Sometimes we don't really, depending on what the challenge is, we don't see ourselves fully. And one of the ways to learn to distinguish between, really see, oh, this is an interpretation, this is an added layer. Maybe it has some accuracy, some truth to it. Maybe it's something that we have to, a principle or an idea that I need to somehow take into account and act on. But it is an interpretation, it is a story, it's an added thing. And so to take the time to see that, then we have more ability to have choice and clarity about what we're doing. So that if we have a challenge with another person, if we can say, something, what happened, what you said yesterday was very difficult for me, and part of the reason it was so difficult is I understood it to be, or I interpreted it to be, you were angry with me. As soon as you say, I understand it, or I interpret it, I add, that's how I understood it, there's a little bit more room for it not to be dogmatic. You were angry, but rather to let the other person participate and explain, well, I was irritated, but I was also really scared. And then you get a bigger picture of what's going on. So to be able to know, to hold and see something a little bit more provisionally, when we know it's an interpretation or story, or as opposed to what's happening to us directly. Also, when we are challenged with other people, or with ourselves even, to perceive the direct experience as a direct experience gives us a very important reference point for how to go forward, or what care needs to be made. So if someone was angry with you yesterday, and the direct experience is because of that, you feel hurt. And you have a tendency to maybe when you're hurt to be angry back and be in the attack mode. And so, but if you go, what was the direct experience? What happened to me? Oh, yes, I was hurt. And now I'm in the attack mode. Or, yes, I was hurt, and now I'm trying to run away. Or I'm afraid. Or I'm sad. And then also when you know that information, then you can begin looking at, well, given that I'm hurt or afraid or sad or angry, what do I practice with that? How do I be with it? How do I be with it so I don't act reactively? How do I be with it so that I'm caring for myself? Because sometimes when we react to challenges, then we often lose ourselves in the process. So to take time to find out what's true here, what's the direct experience, what's the direct experience, and what's the interpretation or the story that I'm telling. But stories are important. And so one of the interesting things to do is, when there's challenges, is to tell the story. But maybe to a neutral party. Can I tell you how I understood this, what happened, tell you the story and what happened? And some of the story will be accurate. And sometimes hearing you say it in a neutral way, and having a kind of taking the pressure off the bottled upness of the story and the feelings by telling the story gives us more clarity about what's going on. And one of the ways to tell the story is to tell it to yourself. Some people journal about it. And then it's interesting to journal because there's a record now of what you're thinking, what you're interpreting, and all that. It's possible then to go back and reread it and much better understand where the interpretation is, where the story making is, the values, all the things we add to the basic raw story, versus how we are interpreting it. And also the way we think and the way that we write or the way that we speak sometimes pulls on a different part of the mind. And one interesting way of seeing this maybe is that maybe when you're sometime when you're alone, speak out loud to yourself. Speak about what's happening on the challenge out loud. And maybe in speaking about it out loud, rather than it ruminating in the mind, you'll find a different relationship to it. Maybe you're speaking from a different place. You understand more your reactivity, or you understand more your place of wisdom. You're more likely to come, and maybe in speaking out loud, it gets clarified much more what's happening for you. And maybe you find your way with it. So all this is a way of being honest, of being truthful. The truth of what's directly happening, and to know what that means, direct, immediate seeing and knowing. And the truth of, this is the story I'm telling myself about it. This is how I'm interpreting it. This is how the values I put on it, the meaning I put on it, the predictions of the future I put on it, this is what I dredge up from the past to include as part of this, what's happening. And the truth of seeing what you're doing in the mind with all this is invaluable. This means that hopefully the challenges we have, they're not crises of the moment, but if there's, it's ongoing in enough way that we can take time out. Ask reality for a little time out to go meditate, to go journal, to go for a walk, to spend some time with a neutral friend, and just really kind of begin discovering what is really the truth here versus what is the interpretation. What is really the direct experience? Interpretation does have a role, but if we know its interpretation, then as I said earlier, we can say that when we're in conversation with people, and then there's much more space to maneuver and find a way. And truth makes us uncomfortable. It's much more comfortable sometimes to, oddly enough, to be caught up in our interpretations, our meaning making, our anger, our blame, our fear, than it is to stop and really feel it and know it and be present for our direct experience. But that's what we're trying to do in this Dharma practice, this kind of truthfulness about what's actually happening here. And then also to put ourselves in situations where we're more likely to kind of pop the bubble of our interpretations and our stories. And what I mean by this is sometimes I've had difficulties with other people, like I'm angry with them or something, and I've learned that my mind thinks about the other person. I don't think so accurately about the person when I'm angry towards them. And so I've learned that it's really important to go find the person and be in conversation with them, because that pops the bubble of the projections, the meaning, the interpretations that my mind is making up around the anger. And it's much safer for me, much safer for the other person, if we can meet and have this, direct experience of each other, rather than being involved in this whole other world of meaning-making, story-making, interpretations. So, so today, if you want to kind of explore these ideas in your daily life, is ask reality for a timeout. And it could be a minute, it could be 5 minutes, it could be, depending on what's going on, and might be you need longer, in order to go for a walk, meditate, journal, do something that you begin asking, what's true here? What's true in the direct experience? And what is interpretation? Oh, that's an interpretation. that statement, that's an interpretation, is a statement of truth. Oh, it's true that that's an interpretation. That's a judgment. That's a meaning making. That's what my mind is doing. That's how I'm relating to all this. And maybe it's really important to see it clearly. That's what you're doing. Maybe you'll see that it's false. Maybe you'll see that you have to take this into account and act accordingly. But to know clearly, oh, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. Is one of the really important ways to work with challenges. In the long term, to get a skill of doing this makes all challenges a lot easier. So thank you very much, and we'll continue on this theme tomorrow.